My name is Dave Willis. I work at Netskope and I'm in charge of technology integrations on the Tech Alliance's business development team. So, as I like to say, it's my job to make sure that our stuff works with your stuff. We're a B2B company to do good stuff for customers. So Netskope first started looking into the marketplace about 3.5 years ago, and we knew that it was a go-to-market motion that a lot of our customers were starting to engage in as a primary vehicle for provisioning and buying this kind of technology. So it was inevitable that we would need to be in there. And then there was the opportunity to continue to use this as a way to accelerate our already hyper-growth trajectory. So we decided to enter into the marketplace with Tackle's help. And where we're at in the journey is we're finally starting to post really good numbers. It did take some time, largely because there were some cultural and process changes that needed to be made in order to truly be successful in marketplace. But Tackle's been a great partner in making sure that we've reached the next tier of achievement in making sales through the cloud-based marketplaces. Essentially, it involved demonstrating and educating the power of the marketplace. In many instances, it was going back to finance and explaining how this was actually bringing a deal into the current quarter as opposed to potentially losing that deal into the next quarter, which of course has a major impact on a company that's trying to post consistent returns. In the case of our legal team, it was showing the power of utilizing a standard contract in order to eliminate all of the delay that can occur in a non-standard contract negotiation. In the case of our sales teams, it was showing how this could knock down several obstacles to customers who would want to buy our product, but for a variety of reasons would not be able to procure without the assistance of a public marketplace. Oh my gosh, there are so many things I would do differently. So I think the first thing I would have done is I would have led with education long before listing. What ended up happening is again, Tackle accelerated, right? So we actually were able to get listings done really quickly. That wasn't the problem. The problem was that all the other things that needed to be done to actually leverage and scale had not been done yet. So it was all post-implementation fixes and tweaks. That was the first thing. The second thing was really sitting down and coming up with a clear view of the true revenue potential. You know, qualitatively, we knew that it would be important, but quantitatively, using that to drive things like going to a comp neutral plan for making sure that the sellers were incentivized to treat marketplace like any other sales motion. That was not done until quite a bit later. And as a consequence, we could have been a lot faster out of the gate, not in listing, but in actually racking up large net new revenue, instead of kind of waiting and lurching our way into where we are now today, which is ultimately a successful recurring revenue stream. You know, Silicon Valley is actually relatively small. And the first thing you do is you pick up the phone and you start calling people and asking questions like, what has been your experience? And the irony was, after a while, we started hearing like, tackle. And this was still early on, right? So the fact was that most of the companies that had had a great deal of success by finding a company that could kind of work through that abstraction layer, right? And that's what Tackle does. So the ones that hadn't done that and had built a really significant volume of business by doing it themselves, they basically iterated and said, you do not want to do what we did, right? So it was really a strong groundswell of support for working with Tackle. So it actually became very easy to justify working with Tackle. Then the question was, you know, how do we pay, right? And it's that ROI piece, which is so critical to any software sale for us to our customers or for Tackle to Netskope. And so what we had to show was, look, again, going beyond the quantitatively, we think that we could get in here. And there was a lot of other reasons why we needed to list in Marketplace. Making money was actually not one of the top concerns. So it was mainly leveraging a number of other benefits, like going to co-sell motion with Amazon, showing competency as a customer of Amazon, showing competency as a security vendor in a cloud space. And all of these help to justify working with Tackle. But the original identification of Tackle was by basically everybody who had tried without Tackle and said, Don't do that. Early on, what we found was a lot of customers, as they started to truly understand how the marketplaces worked, better understood like enterprise discount programs and burn down. And they didn't understand how that worked. This idea that there was this unified bundle of money that they could work off of. And it was funny watching the awareness of our customer base around how that would actually materially help them fund purchases of Netskope. And so what would happen is the deal, we would be doing deals, and all of a sudden our sales reps would start asking questions, or the customer would talk to their procurement team and they would come back and say, hey, there's this thing called enterprise discount, and if we buy through the marketplace, we can start to retire some money, and that money's just there. So can we use that? And our sales teams were like, of course. Which was one of the advantages to being in marketplace, right? That we could take advantage of that concept of this money that was, for many of our customers, sort of like this discovered pot of gold. So a lot of deals early on were really saved because the customer's like, look, I didn't have funding this quarter for this project, but because of you being in marketplace, I'll do the deal. And of course, our sales teams love that, the customer loved that, Amazon loved that, Tackle, of course, benefited by being the facilitator of that. So yes, it happened many times. A couple of other quick examples, there were deals where customers didn't have the ability to fund the entire deal up front. And because of Amazon, they were able to facilitate basically funding the deal through Amazon's business service underwriting. We had other customers who were able to take advantage of the contract, the standard contract that was in place to facilitate and speed up the contract negotiation. There were other customers that didn't or could not add Netskope to their approved vendor list. But because Amazon was the approved vendor, they said, well, as long as we buy you through Amazon, you're on the list. And so all of a sudden, all of these obstacles started to fall away. And those are hugely important to any company that is doing complicated business, where you can get rid of all this other stuff and just focus on the value proposition of your product. That's what you want to deal with. You don't want to deal with all the other stuff. And Tackle, helping us get into marketplaces, really did ultimately help us facilitate and bring those deals forward, if not make sure that those deals happened at all. And yes, we do have deals coming. I think what Tackle offers, which is really very unique in the industry right now, because the industry is so new, is a holistic view as to what in the heck is going on across all of these companies that are trying to transact. Every company is an island unto itself. Sometimes we compete, sometimes we partner, but we very rarely share information about what works or does not work in a sales motion. That's very proprietary information. So what Tackle is able to do is gather up all of that information and really become a consultancy, where you are able to essentially say, we have seen 350 customers do this and it's worked, and we've seen 50 customers do this and it's failed. Do you want to be part of the 350, or do you want to be part of the 50, right? Or whatever the number is. I think that is something that those of us who want to hypergrowth our sales through the marketplaces are absolutely dependent on. Because it's not like we're going to spontaneously create a consortium of marketplace sellers, right? The idea is we are able to benefit from your knowledge and go beyond the listing. And a lot of the conversations I've had with partners and with customers has been the benefiting from that knowledge sharing, sort of the crowdsourcing through Tackle of just what does work. How should customers buy? How should sellers sell? How should you compensate? How should you operationalize this whole thing? We're never going to find that on our own, but Tackle will. And I think when I look to the future of what Tackle is going to be delivering, it's ways to not only operationalize that within the platform, right? To go inside the Tackle upstream, downstream, and look at the reports and understand what is there across all the clouds, right? Not just one cloud, all clouds, multi-cloud view. But it's also to have that consultative out-of-step repetition of, are you on track? What are you doing versus everyone else? Are you doing things right? Are you doing things badly? Because ultimately, we will continue to be a customer of Tackles, and our customers will continue to be customers of Netskope if we continue to improve. And that continual process improvement only comes through analysis, assessment, review, and of course, ultimately, hopefully, improvement.